Hello, hope you had a good Christmas. I certainly did, and I got one of these, which is what I'm going to be showing you today. And what the hell is this, apart from a new Android tablet PC? Wi-Fi 3G HDMI 1080p 3D game. Let's have a look. It looks like that. In the box, other than that, it has power supply, earphones, standard kind of mini USB to normal sized USB thing, and a mini USB to female normal sized USB thing, and a user manual which is not entirely useful. So that's as much of what's in the box as I'm going to show you for now. Let's get on to the thing itself. Bang goes the focus. So the first question is, what the hell is it? I'll tell you what I ordered this. This is my one. It was a Christmas present from my wife. For my wife, I bought one, and she also bought one for her daughter. And what we ordered was a NATPC M009S 16GB RTB Ultimate. This is not one of those. When after several weeks delay, these things arrived in the post. There was a message with them saying our batch of the 16GB RTB Ultimate was faulty. They had dodgy screens, so they were sending us these and hoped they would do just as nicely. And what it is, well, that's debatable. It is branded NATPC. As you can see there, let me just bung that there. It is branded as NATPC, but when you look at the NATPC stuff that's on Amazon and anywhere else, the nearest thing you can come to in terms of specs, and I'll look at those in a minute, would be a NATPC M009S X2 IPS. But when you look at that particular model, it looks entirely different, certainly from this side, and the positioning of the screen and the cameras is different. So after hunting around on the interwebs, I found a handheld that actually looks exactly the same as this, front and back, except for the branding on the back. And that is this is a weird name, Ployer Momo7, speed 7-inch IPS Android, blah 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 blah. The only difference between this and that, and indeed the NATPC X2 in terms of specs, is this has 8GB storage instead of 16. Wendy Lou, the seller, gave us an extra 8GB SD card to stick in these things to make up the difference. And I'll get onto the whole SD card shenanigans later. So yeah, what am I going to call this? It's not a Momo because it's branded NATPC, but what the hell is it? We'll call it an M009S X2 IPS just because I can't find anything else to call it. Specifications: dual core RK3066 1.6 GHz Cortex A9. What the bloody hell does that mean? I'm guessing that's like based on the ARM9 chip. It's a dual core thing. I'm guessing it's 1.6 GHz because that's what it says for the Momo thing. The NATPC M009S blah 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 says 1.4 GHz, but I think this is the same as the Momo. GPU is a quad-core Mali, whatever that is, 1GB RAM. I believe all of that is stuck on it's all one of these embedded chip things where the CPU, GPU and RAM are all on the same thing, kind of like the Raspberry Pi, but I might be entirely wrong about that. I'm not big on the specifications and technical aspects of these things, but that's just sort of what I've gleaned. Screen is 7-inch IPS, resolution of 1024 by 600. Cameras, you've got two cameras on the front. I suppose it depends which side you want to call the front, really. They're calling this the front. That's a 0.3 meg camera, good for Skype. And on the other side, you've got a 2 megapixel, we'll say, yes, camera of some type or another. Viewing angle 178 degrees, whatever. Skype, yes. Email and browsers, yes, built in. There are actually two browsers built in, Chrome and whatever the standard Android browser is, though I find it curious that in functionality there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of difference. They just look slightly different. 5-point touch screen, video 1080p. Now it says 1080p. This does not actually display 1080p. What it does is output via an mini HDMI at 1080p. All kinds of different movie formats, all kinds of music formats, ebooks. It supports Flash and HTML5, and this is important. Wi-Fi, BG and N, 3G, not built in. You need a dongle to run 3G. Yes. So what's it like to use? Actually, first let's just have a look at the thing itself. You got a camera there. You got a camera there. Speaker, very, very tinny. If you're listening to music or doing anything at all where sound quality matters, you want to use your headphones or plug it into something. SD card goes in there, micro SD card. You've got a reset thing here where you would stick a pin in it or something. Microphone, tiny. Headphone socket, and in here a mini HDMI, and well, it's got it marked as the DC 5V power supply input. That's also the mini, micro, whatever, USB, which you use to charge it. You can charge it and you plug all kinds of gubbins in as well, which is good and bad. I would have liked a separate power input, because what it means is if you've got anything USB based plugged in here, you can't be charging it at the same time, so you're entirely reliant on the batteries. We'll talk about them later. Turning it on. This is, now I'm going to turn it on, and it is completely turned off. Generally if you push the power button briefly it goes into sleep mode, but actually having the thing turn on takes a moment. You have to hold the button down for a while, and booting time is, well, you'll see. Don't quite need to make a cup of tea, but it's not ever so fast at booting. Here we go. It does all the usual stand it up like that, and it will. Please do it now. There. That's nice, isn't it? And then you just swipe there and it wakes up. Oh look, there's me with my hair all a mess because I only got up a little while ago. So once it's actually booted up, trying to get out of the reflection now. This was actually quite an alien operating system to me. I am familiar with Windows, obviously. I've done a bit of Linux, don't really like it. iOS on my iPhone I'm familiar with, and obviously the nearest thing to this is iOS. You got the whole swipey thing, you know, where you do all of that gubbins. Settings, you got all kinds of stuff here. The useful ones. Battery, actually this would be very useful, but it's also absolutely rubbish. I had it yesterday reporting that the battery, it like reports on the current charge, if you like. It's now 1 minute 8 seconds. Yesterday, before I turned it off, it was reporting 10 days, 9 hours and something or other, and having about 40% charge. I turned it off for a little while and then turned it back on, and it was reporting the same length of time but 50% charge, which was an absolute nonsense. And then with just a little bit of use, what was I doing with it? I was listening to an internet radio station, and it dropped to 14% in a matter of half an hour, which was also a complete nonsense. In terms of battery life, I have found it to be surprisingly good, depending on what you're doing. A lot of these apps will drain the power quite quickly. Certainly games, I've got Dead Trigger on there, we'll look at that later, and MAME, they will drain it quite quickly, and it's probably good for, I imagine using Dead Trigger, which is the most power hungry thing I've got here, it would probably be good for 3 hours, maybe 4, I haven't really tried it, but that's a bit of a power hog. But for general light use, if you're reading some ebooks or doing a bit of browsing, or what I was doing, which was just browsing the App Store, which we get to here, I spent most of Christmas Day just browsing through here and installing stuff, or looking for stuff that I wanted to install, and the battery lasted about 9 hours, which impressed the hell out of me. And just doing that kind of thing, browsing, reading ebooks, nothing too processor intensive where the main thing is just displaying stuff, it'll last you all day. But processor intensive, yeah, it will. It's probably good for 3 to 4 hours, something like that. Which is, well, obviously it's not in iPad territory, but it's not too bad compared to something like the Nexus 7, which is probably its nearest competitor. What else can I tell you? Compatibility. This is an issue. It's something I've found a little bit annoying. Now, I don't know if it's the ROC chip, because it's dual core, or what it is, but there are certain apps for Android that I know exist for Android that aren't compatible with this. I've looked for them on the App Store, and basically if it's not compatible, it doesn't appear on my App Store. But I've gone to like Google Android websites, and they're there, and I click on them and it says not compatible. And some of them are ones that I really quite wanted. Twitter. I cannot get a Twitter app, actual Twitter, that will work with this. I installed another Twitter, what was it called? Can't remember, which installed on this quite nicely, but then sent the whole thing haywire and it got very unreliable and crash happy. So I uninstalled that. Sky Go, that doesn't work on here. 4OD doesn't work on here. Demand 5 doesn't work on here. A lot of the TV things don't work on it. BBC iPlayer works, and that's good. I would have loved Love Film, pun slightly intended, but I can't find that on here either. But you do get TV catch up, and that matters a lot, and YouTube, that really matters a lot. So it's patchy. eBay app is good, Kindle app is great, love that. So yeah, some apps, if there's an app that's absolutely critical for you, I don't know if you can check whether it will work or not, because there is absolutely no information on the interwebs, like a reliable review of this thing out there. You'll find lots and lots of websites that are selling it, that tell you about it, but all they tell you is what I told you already. Compatibility, try and find information, you won't. Now, other stuff. Memory, storage, in fact, I mean. Let's go back to the settings thing. What we have, the way these things work with memory is odd. Memory on these things is split into different segments. You've got what it calls internal storage, which you would think would be 8 gig, but no, it splits that into 2 bits. It's got this internal storage, which is 1 gig, and then it's got what it calls NAND flash, which is like an internal SD card. I don't know why they've done that, and with all of the OS and everything installed here, we've got a total space of 5.26 gig. I mean, it's an 8 gig device, but it's effectively got about 6 gig after the OS has been installed. And then you've got the actual SD card, which is stuck in the bottom here, which is a 32 gig SD card. And it sees all of these and recognizes them. It's kind of weird having it split into 3. But then when you look at apps, let's have a look at whatever. Have a look at the iPlayer. It has got this stored on what it would consider the internal SD card, the thing that's built in, the 8 gig thing that isn't really 8 gig. And you can move it between what it calls internal storage and the SD card, meaning its own internal SD card. You can have it stored on the 1 gig slot or the 5 or 6 gig slot. But it can't, if you decide you want to move it, it can't see this external or externally plugged in 32 gig SD card. It doesn't know it's there, you can't move anything there. So when it comes to installing apps, you are limited to the initial 8 gig of this thing, which I find very weird. So what the hell can you do with the external SD card? You can plug this thing in via USB into your PC and put all of your video files, photos, MP3s, whatever the hell you like. You can't use it for apps, but you can use it for everything else, and the apps can access it. It's kind of weird, it's a bit confusing, it took me a while to get my head around. It's actually a bit annoying, but it's by no means a deal breaker. You just have to be prepared for it, I think. In the long run, I think I'm going to find the 8 gig nature of this a little bit of a limitation. Certainly, I mean, playing music and all that lot and putting videos on, fine. But if I find lots and lots of apps that I want, I might start running out of space. And being able to put a new SD card in it isn't going to help. Which is a shame. But with the compatibility issues, I don't know, I might find that I don't run out of space because I can't find the stuff that I would like to put on it. Unless they do updated versions of the various different players and things that I want. Having said that, there is still a hell of a lot in the store. And I don't think I've really touched the surface of what is there. I'm not overly familiar with Android, but I mean, a lot of what I find myself looking at is just the top free stuff, which you can find yourself scrolling to the end and you think, okay, that's all there is, and then you go through all the various different categories, because you can look at stuff via category: games, books and reference, business, blah blah blah, and you can scroll through all of that. But again, I think you largely find yourself looking at just the featured, the top paid, top free, blah blah. It's the popular stuff. And initially I thought, well, there's not actually all that much there, is there? But then I started putting in searches and found that there was, what the hell's going on here? There was a hell of a lot more stuff than I had originally thought. You just have to look for it, and in that sense you kind of need to know what you're looking for, or just do, I don't know, a TV player. I found there were way more than I thought. I still couldn't find what I wanted, but there were a lot of others there that I didn't know about. Performance, well, it's pretty damn fast. I think the CPU is around 1.6 gigahertz, it might be only 1.4, but the best way to tell the performance here, it's a shame actually I don't have that mini HDMI cable. Also, I should point out, there is no Bluetooth. That might be a problem for some people. I was kind of surprised when I found out myself that there was no Bluetooth, because I had been hoping to use, say, a PS3 or Xbox 360 joypad on this to play games. But no Bluetooth. What we have is, well, this here lead, the mini USB to female normal sized USB, which I'm plugging into that, which is a standard. It's a PC compatible PS2 style joypad. I have tried using a USB connected PS3 joypad and it didn't want to know it. It didn't see it. And you just plug this in, when I get the thing up the right way, into the USB socket on here. This actually bothers me a little bit. It's a very snug fit. It's a bit fiddly with that flappy thing there. Let's get the thing to face up the right way. Yeah, I do wonder if that will wear over time, but we shall see. Sorry about all the reflections. It's just, well, there's not a lot I can do about that. This is very shiny. We have too much light. I would have liked to plug this into the TV, but I can't do that without the cable, so this is just gonna have to do. My apologies. Now, this I cranked up to the highest setting. It's not going to be a game review, I'm just showing you this literally so you can see what it looks like, showing off the hardware, not the game really. Got it cranked up to the maximum settings. I have configured it to run with this pad to a degree, but I find it doesn't, it's like adding joypad controls to this game was an afterthought, and they don't entirely work. You can move backwards and forwards and rotate and stuff, but up and down, yeah, it seems to be locked off partly. I can set it on analog and I can look up and down, but oddly to do that I have to set the oh crap, I have to move left and right. Yeah, the controls for that are just stupid. But that's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're here to talk about here. It's not about the game. It's about what does it look like? How much oomph has this thing got? Well, I reckon quite a lot. I mean, it's running in a higher resolution than a PS2 would have ever run in. And with, I think, more detail. We're not really in a position where you can see the textures on the floor or whatever. But it impresses the hell out of me. Oh, I'm having trouble here. It's just overrunning me. It's kind of... There's a Christmas theme going on here. A lot of these here zombies have got Christmas Santa and reindeer hats on, which is kind of funny. But yeah, that's... You can't really see it, there's too much reflection on the screen. But it's very impressive. No, that's not going to work. Mission failed. It impresses the hell out of me. It's obviously got a lot of oomph. It plays a better game than my netbook ever could have. It's clearly got more power than that. It's probably actually, in terms of gaming, got more impressive graphics than my main everyday PC. The CPU isn't up to it, but the graphics chips, wow, yes, they're kicking the arse off of my PC. It's bloody good. I don't know how far behind, say, the Nexus 7 it is. It's about a generation behind that thing's GPU. I've forgotten what that one's called, but anyway, I'm just bloody impressed with that. It's got MAME on it. MAME is like an early version. It won't play in the modern games, even if the tablet itself has got the power. So I've been playing, I don't know, stuff up to about as far as Street Fighter 2. You know, there's all your Space Invaders and your Galactians and blah blah blah. And it plays all that very nicely. Video output, brilliant. It's just brilliant. Whatever you throw at it, it does very nicely, very easily. You know, whether it's streaming, if your PC can handle it, this can handle it, or if your broadband can. Streaming off the SD, playing off the SD card, things like MP4s. I've got quite a few on here, and it you know, no stuttering, nothing. It just plays. What is the touchscreen like? Because this is something you will encounter from time to time. I prefer browsing this way. Let's see. My Yahoo. This is going to be a good example actually of what I want to tell you about it. First of all, it defaults to a mobile browser, or it will give you the mobile version of the website. I don't like that. I want the desktop version, and it will give you the desktop version a lot more easily than, say, my iPhone will, and you can do the whole that. And you might ask, well, why the hell do I do that? It just gives you more links. I have a minor quibble with this, and that is sensitivity of the touchscreen is alright. It's not as good as my iPhone, I have to be honest, but it's entirely usable and a whole lot better than a resistive screen. But what is lacking a little bit is the accuracy. Sometimes I go to click a link and it clicks the wrong one, especially if the text is smaller, like this. You go to click one and it will click the one above, or it is usually, yeah, that one, and click the one below. You can miss and click the wrong thing. It's like the resolution of the touch sensitive, whatever it is. If you angle it correctly, and you can see this kind of a mesh, we're probably not going to be able to see it here. There's a mesh sort of embedded in the glass or plastic or whatever it is. And it's like it's fairly low resolution compared to my iPhone. So you just have to be careful and, you know, just blow it up so it's nice and big like that and you won't miss. But it's a minor annoyance. And that is about all I can think to tell you about it right now. I don't know what it's going to be like in terms of long-term reliability. Don't really know. And some of the flaws that I'm finding, I think, aren't to do with the hardware. I think they're the operating system, Android, and this is, I believe, Jelly Bean. It's 4.1.1. I don't know enough about Android to know well, a whole lot. There's a self-defeating statement. I don't know enough about Android to know a lot about it. Yeah, how good was that? Things like the battery charge indicator being rubbish. Well, is that a point of the hardware or of the operating system? I don't know. So, is it good? Yes, I think it's absolutely bloody brilliant. I love the size of it. I love the oomph it's got in terms of playing games and generally doing most of the things I want to do. The only real downside with this one is the lack of storage. It would have been nice to have the 16 gig that I'd asked for, but then it's a more powerful tablet than the one I asked for, and they did make up the shortfall with an SD card. But using an SD card, as I said, is less flexible. If you can get a 16 gig model, if you're going to get one of these. So yeah, weird storage is odd. I don't know if all Androids work the same way, having it split into 3 different areas. I find that odd. The compatibility of software with this rock chip thing I find frustrating, and I hope they bring out new releases of those things like Twitter. I can do Twitter on here using the browser, so it's doable. But I miss some things like 4OD. You can try that on a browser, but I found it very crash happy. So yeah, there are some compatibility issues. The lack of Bluetooth is a pity. It would have been nice to have that. But here's the thing. This thing cost £90. Give or take. It was about £89, and that was with the 8 gig SD card that they threw in to make up the shortfall. This would have probably been about £70 for just a basic 8 gig model, something like that. So yeah, we're talking uber cheap, under £100. It has great performance. It's lacking 1 or 2 things here and there. If those aren't a problem for you, and you trust cheap generic Chinese hardware, I think this thing's bloody brilliant. It does a great deal of what I would like to do. I love the size. It sits in your hand just fine. I mean, I've spent days just sitting, playing with it, fiddling with it. Absolutely fascinated with the things it will do. Battery life is decent, surprisingly decent. I didn't think it would be nearly as good as it is. Reliability, we're going to have to see. I've only had it for about a week, so I don't know. It gets a bit warm when you've been using it for a long period of time, doing something a little bit, playing video or music, streaming music, that kind of thing. It gets a bit warm down towards the bottom on the back here. But it's the only time I've had issues with it crashing has been when I've installed something which was clearly badly written. And I uninstalled that and everything went back to normal and entirely reliable. So yeah, the cameras, I've not made a lot of use of the cameras, so I can't really comment on their quality and beyond saying they work. So there it is. There being just about no reviews of this, I hope this video has been at least slightly useful. I mean, trying to come up with something coherent is proving tricky because it's early in the morning. But anyway, that is like, well, is it a NATPC M009S X2 IPS, or is it a Ployer Momo7 speed thing? Don't know, but whatever. I like it. It's flawed in a few places, but none of those are deal breakers for me at least. And for £90, I reckon it's an absolute bloody bargain. Alright, shutting up now. Thank you for watching.